In Indraprastha, everybody had gathered to prepare for the Rajasuya Yagya. As a customary practice, kings from all across the country were invited to attend Yudhishthir's coronation. Shishupal, the king of Chedi, was invited too. The Yagya was held with great pomp. However, during the Yagya, an unfortunate incident occurred. When the time came to do the honors, there arose confusion among the people. As per custom, the king who was considered most worthy of all would be given the honors of the occasion. Yudhishthir then rose and invited Krishna to participate in the final offerings. This gesture angered Shishupal, who hated Krishna and resented him for marrying Rukmini. Shishupal seethed with anger when Krishna was chosen for the honor above all the other kings who were present. Before Yudhishthir and Krishna could make the offerings, Shishupal rose and objected to the honor that was granted to Krishna. He disgraced the Pandavas openly by calling them the illegitimate sons of Pandu. He even insulted Krishna by stating that he was of low birth and was raised among cowherds. Shishupal voiced his objection, saying that Krishna was by no means honorable. Those who agreed with Shishupal applauded in support. In anger, Shishupal said that Krishna was neither of royal blood nor heroic. Instead, to do the honors, Yudhishthir could have chosen Duryodhan or Karna. Not only did he humiliate Krishna and the Pandavas, he even tried gaining the support of the other kings. Having spoken such harsh words, Shishupal rose and called upon the other kings to walk out of the Yagya with him. Yudhishthir requested him to attend the Yagya, but Shishupal refused. Instead, he got even more aggressive. In the past, Krishna had made a promise to Shishupal's mother, saying that he would pardon 100 of Shishupal's insults. In the Yagya, therefore, Shishupal had crossed all limits by calling him names and making well over 100 insults. Thus, Krishna rose and calmly walked to the front, where he used his Sudarshan Chakra to remove Shishupal's head from his torso. With Shishupal's obstructions out of the way, Yudhishthir and Krishna made the final offerings, and Yudhishthir was crowned the emperor. After the Rajasuya Yagya, a huge procession headed from Indraprastha towards river Ganga. It was customary for the king to bathe in the holy river and cleanse himself. The procession comprised of musicians whose music had filled the air with spirit of celebration, along with the dancers who danced all along the way. The kings from various kingdoms who had attended the Rajasuya Yagya were also present. With Yudhishthir in the forefront, sitting in his grand chariot, the procession moved towards the Ganga. Upon reaching the Ganga, the sages and priests chanted prayers, while the audience sang songs to celebrate the occasion. When Yudhishthir and Draupadi were taking the holy bath, sounds of drums and conch shells vibrated through the air. Everybody spoke of Yudhishthir's greatness. As Indraprastha celebrated the coming of the new king, Duryodhan burned with envy. He became more spiteful after the success of the Rajasuya Yagya. Duryodhan had already hated the Pandavas and had envied the imperial court which Maya, the demon, had built for them. The court was created with the best craftsmanship and artistry. It was not only a home to the Pandavas, but in it lived a whole township. Soon after the completion of the Rajasuya Yagya, one day, when the Pandavas were sitting and discussing matters in the court, Yudhishthir saw Duryodhan and his younger brother marveling at the beauty of the palace. While wandering through the corridor, Duryodhan came across a crystal floor and mistook it for a pool of water. He lifted his robe to cross over and realized that it was only a crystal floor. This caused him much embarrassment. As he walked ahead, he came across a pool which was adorned with lotuses. This time he was convinced that this too was an illusion and that the pool was actually a crystal floor. He thus walked ahead and fell into the pool, drenching himself from head to toe. As if this humiliation was not enough, Draupadi, who had been watching Duryodhan's fall, laughed out loud and added salt to the Kaurava prince's wounds. Insulted by the mockery, Duryodhan walked out of the pool and stormed out of the palace of illusions. While everybody laughed at Duryodhan, Yudhishthir tried to stop him, but it did nothing to mitigate Duryodhan's hatred for his cousins.
After leaving Indraprastha, Duryodhan was filled with vengeance. He burnt with anger every time he thought about the incident that had occurred at Indraprastha. Duryodhan spent days pondering ways in which he could avenge the embarrassment that was caused to him in Yudhishthir's court. This time, he was determined to destroy the Pandavas and take away all that they possessed. When Shakuni, Duryodhan's uncle, visited him, Duryodhan confided in him his feelings. Duryodhan told Shakuni of his humiliation in open court and how he was mocked by the Pandavas. He even told him about how Shishupal was killed and how all other kings supported the Pandavas. Duryodhan envied the Pandavas for their strength and the support they had gained in very little time. Desperate to avenge the Pandavas, Duryodhan told Shakuni that he, along with his brothers, would attack the Pandavas by organizing his troops and exterminating them. Shakuni told Duryodhan that even the strongest forces cannot defeat the Pandavas in battle. It would be foolish to fight the Pandavas, as victory would be on their side. Shakuni then hatched a plan. He told Duryodhan that Yudhishthir was very fond of playing dice, although he wasn't very good at it. Shakuni, on the other hand, was extremely skillful at the game of dice. He knew that if Yudhishthir was challenged, he would never refuse. Shakuni told Duryodhan that he would play for him. He would defeat the Pandavas and take away their kingdom without any bloodshed. The game of dice would prove to be deadlier than the sword. Having decided on the plan, Duryodhan and Shakuni approached Dhritarashtra. Duryodhan told his father about the incidents that had occurred at Indraprastha, all of which had left him extremely humiliated and unhappy. Shakuni proposed his evil plan to Dhritarashtra. Upon hearing the devious plan, Dhritarashtra was shocked and desired to consult Vidur, who was known for his wisdom. When Vidur came to visit Dhritarashtra, he told him about his son's plan. He asked him to go to Indraprastha and invite the Pandavas to Hastinapur for a game of dice. Although Vidur expressed his fear and condemned the plan, he followed Dhritarashtra's order and set out for Indraprastha. At Indraprastha, Vidur was received warmly by the Pandavas. He told Yudhishthir about the invitation and even told him that gambling might lead to disputes among the cousins. He told him that through the game of dice, the Kauravas wished to destroy them. As a Kshatriya, Yudhishthir was bound to accept all challenges related to gambling and fighting. Knowing full well the deceit the Kauravas were employing, Yudhishthir agreed to the invitation. Having made his decision, Yudhishthir made arrangements and set forth their journey to Hastinapur.
When Vidur visited the Pandavas and told them about the invitation, Yudhishthir agreed to the offer. Although suspicious of Shakuni's guile, Yudhishthir could not reject the invitation. Yudhishthir loved to gamble, and rejecting the invitation would have tainted his honor. The third reason was that Yudhishthir did not want any unnecessary disputes to arise with his cousins by rejecting the offer. Hence he agreed. Upon reaching Hastinapur, the Pandavas were received with little enthusiasm by the Kauravas. Duryodhan and Shakuni were overjoyed to see the Pandavas accept their offer. After spending the night in their rooms, the Pandavas were guided to the imperial court at Jayant the next morning, which was built specially for the game. Seeing the splendor of the grand court that Maya had built for the Pandavas, the Kauravas imitated the same by constructing the court at Jayant. At the court, the Pandavas sat against Shakuni and the Kauravas. The game of dice was played before them. Before the game commenced, Duryodhan announced that he would supply all the coins and gems, while his uncle would roll the dice for him. Yudhishthir protested as assigning a substitute went against the terms of the game and was not allowed. Shakuni, in response, accused Yudhishthir of being a coward. To avoid arguments, Yudhishthir conceded and the game of dice began. The hall in which the match was taking place was filled with audience who held their breath with apprehension. Among them were Bhishma, Vidur, Drona, and Dhritarashtra. They were all anxious about the game. There seemed to be much tension in the air. Before the dice was rolled, Yudhishthir wagered his wealth of pearls, while Duryodhan bet his wealth of riches. Shakuni, the master gambler, threw the dice and won the first match. This made the atmosphere more tense, as people were apprehending the worst. With the first victory, Duryodhan took possession of the Pandava wealth of pearls. The game, however, did not stop. Yudhishthir went ahead to wager his treasury of gold, silver, and fine jewels. As the dice was rolled again, sounds of cheers for Shakuni vibrated through the hall. Shakuni won the second round too, and took possession of Yudhishthir's wealth. Following his defeat, Yudhishthir wagered his chariot, his army, his horses, and his kingdom, all of which were taken away by the Kauravas in the successive rounds as they kept winning round after round with Shakuni's help. Having lost all his wealth and possessions, Yudhishthir was now left with nothing. While Shakuni and Duryodhan instigated Yudhishthir to gamble, Yudhishthir wandered into confusion and indecision. The decision he would make now would spell doom for his clan in the days to come.
Having lost all his riches, Yudhishthir had nothing more to wager. Shakuni had won every round, taking away all the possessions the Pandavas had. The game, however, did not stop with Yudhishthir losing all he had. Unwilling to give up, Yudhishthir then announced his next possession he would wager. To everyone's shock, Yudhishthir wagered his brother Nakul, who was a powerful warrior and was one of Yudhishthir's prized possessions. Shakuni rolled the dice again, and the result was in his favor. Nakul was lost to the Kauravas, and Yudhishthir could do nothing. Struck by desire to continue playing, Yudhishthir then staked Sahadev, who knew all the principles of morality. Shakuni rolled the dice, and Sahadev was lost as well. Yudhishthir was convinced that Shakuni was employing some evil technique of rolling the dice. This made him even more desperate to keep playing, hoping that victory would soon favor him. Thus, he wagered his next brother Arjun, a master at archery. Shakuni rolled the dice and won Arjun from Yudhishthir. All the elders watching the game let out cries of protest and requested that Yudhishthir end the game. But the obsessed Pandav did not stop. He wagered Bhim, who was the strongest warrior among them all. Shakuni rolled the dice and won Bhim. With nothing left to wager, Yudhishthir put himself on stake and, to the surprise of nobody, lost himself to Shakuni. The loss of the Pandavas in the game of dice spread waves of shock and fear among all gathered. Shakuni and Kauravas celebrated their victory, while the Pandavas became spiteful towards them. Shakuni's plan, however, was not quite done. The Pandavas were going to lose more still.
The game of dice, which began with Yudhishthir losing all his possessions, did not end with losing himself and his brothers to the Kauravas. After the previous round of losses, Shakuni announced in open court the victory of the Kauravas. He made an offer to Yudhishthir saying that he could win himself back from their slavery by staking Draupadi. Yudhishthir, against his better judgment, conceded to Shakuni's suggestion. This caused everyone to disapprove Yudhishthir's decision. Shakuni rolled the dice and won again. With this ultimate victory, the Kauravas rejoiced. Duryodhan called for Vidur and asked him to go fetch Draupadi. He ordered, saying that she should henceforth serve as the maid of the palace and clean the floors. Vidur immediately objected to Duryodhan's order. He said that Yudhishthir had no right to wager Draupadi, especially after he was lost to the Kauravas. He even warned Duryodhan of the wrath he was inviting and cautioned him of devastating consequences of his action. These words, however, fell upon deaf ears. He was brimming with pride to even pay heed to Vidur's warnings. Duryodhan then ordered his guard to go fetch Draupadi. Upon reaching Draupadi's chambers, the guard informed Draupadi of the events that had occurred. He told her that Yudhishthir, drunk on gambling, had lost her to the Kauravas. She was to serve as a slave to them and that she was commanded to present herself before the court. Agitated by what she heard, Draupadi refused to step out of her chambers. She could not believe that Yudhishthir would stake her to the Kauravas. Furthermore, having lost himself to the Kauravas, he no longer had any rights to decide her fate. She sent the messenger back with the message of her refusal. Draupadi's message angered Duryodhan, who then ordered his brother Dushasan to bring Draupadi forcibly to the court. Dushasan obeyed his order and rushed to fetch Draupadi. Dushasan walked into Draupadi's chambers and, like a hunter, ran to grab his prey. Draupadi, on the other hand, ran to save herself from the predator. Dushasan, however, caught hold of Draupadi's hair and dragged her out of her chamber to the assembly hall. Those who were gathered in the assembly hall were frightened by what they saw. Draupadi, with her clothes torn apart and locks scattered all over her face, was crying out for help. Seeing the helpless faces of her husbands, she pleaded to the elders for help, but none came to her rescue. Dhritarashtra and Bhishma sat helplessly. The ideas of morality and virtue had lost their meaning. Meanwhile, Duryodhan, Shakuni, and the other Kauravas laughed and mocked Draupadi and the Pandavas. Draupadi was called names and was pointed fingers at. Her rage knew no bounds. Her words fell like fire, but nothing changed. As she lay helplessly on the floor in the open court, Draupadi closed her eyes and prayed to Krishna. She knew that Krishna would protect her in the worst situation that was yet to come. The story of the secret in Kunti's past starts when she was a young woman, growing up in her uncle Kunti Bhoj's court. She was wise and full of life. The king, her adoptive father, loved her as his own daughter. Before Vishwakarma started work on building the kingdom, the forests that surrounded Khandavprastha were cleared by wildfires. The barren land of Khandavprastha was made into a beautiful looking city with a magnificent palace, wide streets, gardens, streams and parks. The Pandavas named their new kingdom Indraprastha, since it was built in resemblance to Indra's own city.